Welcome to another session of Art and Prayer. My name is Rob McPherson. I'm the pastor at Davison United Methodist Church, and I'm glad that you are here with us for a time of contemplative prayer and deepening our relationship with God. Today we will be moving into something a little new. As much as I love Juliet Benner's book, which we have been using for the past few weeks, we're going to move away from the book for 1 week here. And part of the reason for doing that is helping us to see that this is something we can do on our own. There are other resources. We don't have to stick with just one book and just one person's selections of paintings. Personally, I was a little disappointed that Juliet has such a restricted group of painters. They're all male. The vast majority of them are European. So I would like to see us expand that a little bit. And we're able to do that. As I said, there are other resources that we can use that also help us to understand art and can help us to look at it in a way that inspires prayer. So the first thing to do, if you're doing that, perhaps is to find some website or some other thing that helps us to look at art and analyze it in a little deeper way. I am today using a section from theartstory.org, and they have some wonderful reflections on art. And we're going to look at an artist whose name is Lavinia Fontana. Once you've selected your piece of art, once you've found some way of getting into it deeper, and you don't even have to do that. You could do this entirely on your own. I happen to find it helpful to use one of those experts in art to help me see things I might not see well. But once you've picked your piece of art, then you need to find a scripture that either tells the same story or goes with it. So it doesn't have to be a painting that specifically refers to a scripture passage necessarily or is intentionally Christian. Perhaps you want to spend some time looking at Monet's water lilies, for example. Well, you might find a scripture that talks about the waters. You might find a scripture that talks about God's creation. So selecting a scripture then that helps you to look into that art in a specific way is another thing that can be helpful. You can do that by going to various Bible sites and searching a keyword. So perhaps if you were doing Monet's water lilies, you might search the words living water. And that would point you to a scripture that you could then use for reflection. So you can do this yourself. You don't have to be limited by the book. You can begin to find ways of deepening your prayer life continually, not just using these resources. So I wanted you to be free to be able to do that and to take yourself to that next step of making this yours, finding art that touches your heart and mind in ways that lead you to experience God. Again, we're going to be looking at a piece of art by Lavinia Fontana, and this piece of art is about Mary Magdalene coming to the tomb and discovering Jesus. It's a resurrection story. Let's begin by listening carefully to this scripture, a section from John chapter 20. Mary stood outside near the tomb crying. As she cried, she bent down to look into the tomb. She saw two angels dressed in white, seated where the body of Jesus had been, one at the head and one at the foot. The angels ask her, "Woman, why are you crying?" She replied, "They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they've put him." As soon as she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she replied, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Don't hold on to me, for I haven't yet gone up to my Father. Go to my brothers and sisters and tell them I'm going up to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." As you listened to that scripture, what word or phrase seemed important to you? What word or phrase called out to you? What picture or image seemed to lead you toward God? Let's now look at the painting by Fontana. Here in this painting, we see two Easter scenes simultaneously. The first is in the foreground. It is the moment when Mary Magdalene encounters the resurrected Christ in a garden and mistakes him for a gardener. Upon realizing his true identity, she reaches out to him in disbelief, and he tells her, "Touch me not," the title of the work. Fontana made the unusual choice to depict Christ barefoot in modern gardening clothes, a wide-brimmed hat, simple tunic, and spade. He reaches his hand over Mary Magdalene's head as if blessing her. In the background, we see her again, followed by Jesus' mother, Mary, who is weeping with her hand over her face, walking toward his tomb, inside of which is a glowing angel. How is this picture, these two scenes of Easter, of resurrection, different from how you imagined it as you listened? What in the artwork draws your eye? Fontana has painted with the use of vivid colors. She uses a style in which the bodies are elongated and contorted, strained and curving. Her treatment of the scene is much warmer and more tender than some of the more formal versions that have been executed by other artists. Mary Magdalene stretches her arm out to invite us into the scene. One historian, Franco Mormando, writes that Fontana's decision to present Christ as a literal gardener reminds us that he is the gardener of the human soul, eradicating evil noxious vegetation and planting, as St. Gregory the Great says, the flourishing seeds of virtue. What do you think about as you see Christ as a literal gardener? Is there a word or an image or an idea from Scripture that begins to form in your mind as you look at this painting? Take a moment. Where is your eye drawn? How does it reflect the word or phrase or idea that jumped out to you from Scripture? Begin your time of prayer and interaction with God. Let's hear the Scripture again. Mary stood outside near the tomb, crying. As she cried, she bent down to look into the tomb. She saw 2 angels dressed in white, seated where the body of Jesus had been, one at the head and one at the foot. The angels asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" She replied, "They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they've put him." As soon as she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she replied, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Don't hold on to me, for I haven't yet gone up to my Father. Go to my brothers and sisters and tell them, I'm going up to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." You've heard the Scripture now for a second time. Do you begin to hear a message from God? Is there something that God is telling you about this scene or about something in your life? How are art and Scripture and your life tied together in this message from God? Look again at the painting. Take some time and look first at that scene in the background with Jesus' mother, with Mary Magdalene, with the angel. What message does the angel have for you? From the Scripture, from the painting? How is the angel bringing you a word from God, and what is it? Look then at the picture in the foreground with Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Mary has a gift in her hand. She was preparing to anoint the body. She was planning on blessing Jesus. Notice again that Jesus is blessing her. What do you bring to Christ, and how is He blessing you? What message, again, is the Scripture bringing? Is this picture bringing? God does have a message for you to hear. Something for you to contemplate and then live out in your life. As you consider this Easter story, this Easter picture, what is your Easter message? I am thankful that you have participated in this time of prayer with me. I hope that it has been a blessing, one in which you have found yourself drawn closer to God in heart, in mind, and in action. Be at peace. Continue to think about how God is speaking to you. Perhaps this message is clear and you will understand it right away. Perhaps you will need to further your contemplation and prayer over the next few days as you try to clarify how God is indeed speaking to you, blessing you, and calling you. Have yourselves a blessed day, and please participate with us again next week as we use art and Scripture to meet God in prayer.